staying into the same world of conversation. One, Joe Biden has called for the arrest in that case and for justice for Ahmaud in that case. And at the same time he does that, he also puts out his Lift Every Voice plan targeting Black communities. And one way in which we can address racial inequality and these injustices is through policy. But yet, in my opinion, the Democrats don't ever do that when they have their turn in office. Joe Biden decided, as I mentioned, to put out his Lift Every Voice plan, Kimberlyn. And warning here for our listeners, if you're looking to go and read it yourself and you don't want the spoilers, because we're going to talk a lot about it, go tune out of our show and go read it right now. I know it's something special to experience outrage, disappointment, and embarrassment for the Democrats firsthand. So if you haven't read the plan and you were waiting, go do that. For the rest of you, stay with us here. We'll walk you through it and save those 30 minutes of your life. Kimberlyn, I know you got a chance to look closely at the plan. I think you got a sneak peek before it was released to the wider public. For me, the plan does what the Democratic Party does best, and that's sloganeering. The plan had all the good liberal stuff: health disparities in the time of COVID-19, investment in poor Black communities, increased loans and grants to Black businesses, new credit checks to break up the monopoly of credit score corporations, and the classic of all phrases, lots of criminal justice reforms. On paper, all of it reads as well thought out practical policies. However, when you actually start to pick apart the policies and look at what is happening within states and cities, you watch the plan blow up. A few highlights to get us going. Subject headers include, quote, end the criminalization of poverty and stop corporations from profiteering off of incarceration. Yep, that's coming from Joe Crime Bill Biden and from a guy who has taken dozens of donations from billionaires. Another header here, quote, give local elected officials the tools and resources they need to combat gentrification. Curious what tools he'll give them when Democratic mayors in cities such as Chicago, San Francisco, New York City, and Washington, D.C. have been the ones driving gentrification in their cities through their own tools that they, the neoliberal Democrats, created themselves. They already have the tools. They're the gentrifiers. How are you going to fight them yourselves? And finally, reinvigorate community-oriented policing. It says in the plan, Kimberlyn, policing works best when officers are out of their cruisers and walking the streets, engaging with getting to know members of their communities. But in order to do that, police departments need resources to hire a sufficient number of officers. Kimberlyn, none of these policies are actual solutions. There is no solution to the gentrification beyond giving poor people homes. There is no solution to ending poverty beyond giving people money. There is no such thing as community policing. Anyone try to find me a study that shows the efficacy of community policing. There is zero relationship between a reduction in violent crime and the number of police getting to know neighbors. Kimberlyn, for me, these policies are absolute trash and are incredibly weak in addressing actual material conditions facing Blacks in America. What say you?
I say that it's an insult on 3 different levels. Number one, I find the name of it to be insulting. And just like, when we ask these questions about when these designers like Gucci and Dolce & Gabbana make these racist mistakes, and we say, well, didn't they have any Black people in the room to look at this and say this is things wrong with this? Where were the Black people in the room to say that the name of this plan is an insult? I feel like it's Columbusing, and I name of it, number one. Number two, the price tag on that white paper, whatever they want to call it. So the $990,000 bond, that's not even enough to solve problems Anacostia.
How are you doing, Kimberly? Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're fine. I agree with you that the name is appalling. I find it to be appalling on a few points. That Joe Biden is the person who's putting out a plan like this. And the criminal justice part, considering Joe Biden spent all of his life putting people, of a darker persuasion behind bars. I'm always amazed at Democrats when they do stuff like this, because it's singling out African Americans as if African Americans don't require health care or Social Security or expansion of getting rid of student debt. Like, these things dramatically affect the bottom end of the income scale, which will actually assist African Americans also, while also assisting the rest of the community. I don't think politics works like this. Meaning, I don't think you can get anything out of politics without any kind of leverage in order to pull something out of whoever you're dealing with. And African Americans voting to the tune of 90%, basically neuters any real possibility of that group getting anything. Now, am I right or wrong on that?
And you're right. And there is no way that Joe Biden or anyone on the Biden team is going to convince me that what we know should be happening right now, and that is his folks should be inviting Bernie's folks to the table, should have the Sanders team at the table. There is no possible way that you're going to tell me that they had a conversation with anyone with a slither of Bernie Sanders support in their bloodstream, and this is what is coming out as a policy paper. None of the policies that have been put forth by this Biden campaign have meat to them. There is no sizzle. They are all at best, at even best, not even a decent white. I read it. All my blood did was boil.
Yeah, I mean, it's structural issues, too, in there that they just completely miss. I mean, one was to set up a new credit agency basically saying the three major corporations that do credit checks here in the United States are corrupt and they're broken and the credit system's broken. But Jamarl, if you don't have credit, what does it matter if there's a new credit company coming out to give new scores out? No bank is going to lend to you. And so these underlying structural issues and the dollar amount on it, often people say, oh, we should just pull all black business money and keep all money within black communities. It doesn't work like that. The U.S. government is working with trillions upon trillions of dollars, and white people have built wealth in this country for the last 200 years. You're not going to all of a sudden just in a matter of a sweep of a pen give a few $1 billion and somehow have enough power with that money to influence the political system. So then the question then, I guess, is asking, how do black people take back some of that control? Because I think the Democratic Party will say, cool, Jamarl, you don't have enough money to donate to us that we need. We got plenty of billionaire friends. You don't have enough votes in a lot of cities because we're focused on white voters in strategic places, and we'll get maybe the Latinx vote. I think there's enough that the Democrats can constantly point to that has allowed them to bifurcate the communities so they don't actually have power. And so then maybe it's an internal movement within the black communities to coalesce around certain policies that they can have a unifying power. But it seems like as long as they can get the Clybourns and the John Lewises and others to constantly endorse them, that black power isn't built up in a way that can actually pressure the Democratic Party.
The last 40 years, lefties and African Americans have basically been doing politics backwards. They've lumped themselves in with the Democratic Party, talking about African Americans for obvious reasons of issues of civil rights and so forth. But there are times when environmental factors change, will require human beings to also change with those environmental factors in order to get into a better standing, let's say from point A to point B. The time for lefties and the time for African Americans being in the Democratic Party is over. That doesn't mean to go to the Republican Party, God no, but it just means that you stop considering yourself a Democrat. If you really want to get Medicare for all accomplished, if you really want to get Social Security expanded, if you really want to get rid of student debt, you can never do it inside a party that absolutely, completely, 1,000% disagrees with the very basis of your ideological framework. And that was proven when every last one of those Democrats, when asked, would you steal this nomination from Sanders if he gets to the end without enough delegates? And every last one of them, including Elizabeth Warren, said yes, which means all of them understood that they would lose because no Bernie supporter would have voted for anybody who they were going to put up after that. They were willing to crash it to Trump as long as it stopped you and Sanders from putting through those particular policies. I guess my point is, if you're trying to do anything, talking about the black vote or lefties, working in the party is not the way to do it. Your way.
That wasn't I guess my question, Jamarl, and maybe Kimberly. My question was, what does that alternative organizing look like? We know to leave the Democratic Party.
That's what I'm saying.
But what does that organizing look like?
That's what I'm saying. The goal of that is to yank yourself out of the party and function behind policy. To basically say, these are the policies that I'm for. Take it or leave it. And oftentimes the problem is that people consider themselves Democrats, so they feel bad about not voting Democrat, or they feel some kind of way about it, when it's the opposite. You're supposed to use political leverage. Not being in the party structure allows a certain degree of political leverage where you can influence by making them lose. If you have the capacity to make them lose, you have the capacity of leverage. That's where it needs to start. But unfortunately, African Americans vote to the tune of like 90% Democrat. And lefties, even when they don't want to vote for the Democrat, they still vote to the tune of like 75%.
So, Kimberlyn, I guess I'm curious from that perspective, if we agree, and I know you still work within Democratic politics, what does that look like on the ground, though? I mean, who writes that other policy that has credibility and authority, and can you actually move people to see beyond the two parties? I think once you get onto the ground and into the weeds of day-to-day organizing, people aren't paying attention, so you have to give them very concrete, easily digestible messaging. That's where the tricky part gets. Like, how do you reorganize people to think beyond what's currently taking place?
Yeah. Well, I think the two things that we definitely are going to have to do, and that is we have to reorganize the bench, and we have to change the pipeline. And that's going to come from how we recruit candidates, how we train them, and how we help them to win. And so because a lot of the party power is there, in terms of black power, a lot of the party black power is very much tied to incumbencies. And I don't have any death wish on anyone, so please understand when I talk about this, it's tied to incumbencies of age group people that are getting wearier by the year. And so we have to start thinking very, very differently. I was in AOC about how we are in this, that if we have an incumbent that we know is not doing the work of the people or doing the work who need aren't doing the work of their constituency, that we are leaning in to just like, well, we just keep them there for the I word. We've got to rethink that. And I know some of my friends who are listening are going to be really, really upset. We got to start flipping some of these incumbents, bottom line.
Wait, I have to interrupt. You know, the DSCC and the DCCC had put in a rule that basically they would blacklist any company that worked with any lefty group that tried to take down an incumbent. So that basically means that there is no pathway in real terms to take down an incumbent in the Democratic Party. You're just stuck with that dinosaur forever.
Actually, the issue with that is the expectation that your only ability to fundraise or your only ability to run a strong campaign is that you have to actually go through those two organizations. I can show you right now a young man by the name of Michael Owens right here in the state of Georgia who is running, excuse me, I'm in my outdoor office, who is running one hell of a progressive congressional race against one of our blue dogs, David Scott. And he is running a policy power-packed truth power congressional race. And first, we're like, oh, whatever. No one was paying attention. But he has grassroots organizing under his belt, and he is building tight force right on the ground in the face of the DCCC, as well as AOC. I'm talking about incumbents that wouldn't even debate, that don't even debate other people that run against them. Yeah, she didn't even get the guy to debate her. Michael's running into the same thing. But this is the type of process that we have to begin to follow for the model that we currently have to begin to effect change. Because like you, I understand, we do have a lot of our folks, a lot of black folks who are extremely tied to the Democratic Party, and breaking that umbilical cord and trying to birth a new mindset, a new political mindset in black folks is going to be tough.